Well then, on the back of developments in Russia on Saturday, there's talk that the President Vladimir Putin may want to stay home instead of leaving to attend the BRICS summit, which will be held in South Africa in August. This as concerns are being raised among people in Russia, especially that Putin's authority has now been undermined in an unprecedented fashion. South Africa, meanwhile, is still under pressure to arrest Putin on an international criminal court warrant if he does land here in August. He has been charged, well not charged, but the warrant has been issued in connection with alleged war crimes committed in Ukraine. Let's unpack this now with South African economist Dr Azar Jammine. A very good evening to you, Dr Jammine. Thank you for your time. So, if indeed predictions that Putin may want to stay home to sort of assure people that he remains firmly in charge, would that be South Africa's ticket out of a very tight spot, if you will?
Ironically, yes, very much so. And one has seen the rand, for example, appreciating by 1 or 2% since the weekend, precisely in part because there is a feeling that the country may avoid having sanctions being imposed on it for not arresting Putin on his arrival in South Africa. The likelihood of that occurrence has now diminished significantly, favoring the potential for the country to avoid various sanctions and losing the AGOA benefits, for example.
Right, and I'm hoping our connection to you will persist, Dr. Jammine, because we're losing you somewhat. But currencies, markets by their nature, fluctuate. They go up, they go down. How do we make the distinction between regular fluctuation and what is directly linked to South Africa's position on what's going on in Russia and in Ukraine?
I think it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, or to be totally convinced about what is and what is not influencing the currency. There's no question that international monetary policy developments have an important role to play, and one could argue that over the past week or so there has been renewed concern based on remarks made by various central bank governors that interest rates around the world are likely to rise still further, and that kind of environment is not conducive towards interest in riskier assets such as those of South Africa. Yet in the face of that, one has seen the rand actually appreciating in the past couple of days. Part of this is to do with the fact that the chances of Putin landing on our shores and not being arrested and thereby creating a negative perception about the country's dalliance with Russia fall away.
Right, and the South African government has not committed to an actual response on whether Putin will land here in August. In fact, the ANC president, also president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, when he spoke at a party conference in the Western Cape on Sunday, said that the summit will go ahead, but whether Putin will come or not is still sitting with a question mark. What is the potential economic damage the longer that decision is left without a final word?
No, I think there won't be additional damage. We've had a lot of damage already inflicted by the Lady R event, as well as the concerns regarding the build-up to the BRICS summit. The rand has already depreciated substantially. I think a lot of the bad news has been discounted. The rand should be theoretically trading at levels of around 14, 15 rand to the dollar instead of 18.5 to the dollar. That would have been the case in the absence of these developments, as well as the grey listing of the country in February. So I don't believe that, damage can be inflicted. The potential inflationary impact of the rand's depreciation over the past couple of weeks has already been manifested in an upward revision of interest rate hike expectations. And so I think the damage has already been built into markets.
So on the issue of sanctions, what we do know for sure is that at a criminal court level, the ICC would not take kindly if South Africa allowed Putin to land here and leave without handing him over on the international arrest warrant, right? But on the issue of sanctions, that at the moment is has been left up to speculation and some of the analysis. Is it a guarantee, is it set in stone at this stage that if indeed he did come here, there would be sanctions? And if so, beyond the lucrative AGOA agreements with the United States, where else might we see the West targeting South Africa with sanctions? Which sectors of the economy?
First of all, there is no certainty that even AGOA would actually fall away if South Africa, if Putin did come here and we were not to arrest him. The American politics plays a very important role here. The Republicans would undoubtedly be rooting for a termination of South Africa's access to AGOA. With the Democrats, it's not quite so clear. And of course, we know that there's going to be a build-up to the presidential election that a significant influence on the decision on to remove South Africa from AGOA from 2025 onwards, which is the date at which the agreement would be renewed. As for what other countries would do, here one can only speculate that many European countries would see friendliness between South Africa and Russia and the unwillingness to arrest Putin as being a cause for action of some sorts to act against a country that is seen to be supporting the other side of the Ukraine battle. And that could see any number of sanctions when you bear in mind that such a high proportion of our trade is with Europe. Many areas of the economy could be negatively affected. And also on the financial sector, from the financial aspect, you're going to see less investment into South Africa than would otherwise have been the case. But as I say, this is all in the realm of speculation right now. And to some extent, the events of the past weekend have reduced the chances of Putin coming to our shores and therefore enhanced the likelihood that we might just avoid a bullet here.
And briefly, Dr. Jammine, in terms of South Africa's bargaining power, if you will, in the face of Western pressure or any other negotiation or stalemate with those US-aligned countries, how much do we have going for us? What would make them stick by South Africa even if it became a more increasingly uncomfortable partnership?
The fact remains that South Africa is a meaningful trading partner, not a huge one for Europe, but it is a meaningful one, especially for countries like Germany, France, and the UK. And I don't think that they would be in a rush to terminate some of those trade relations. There are some areas where South Africa is still a critical source of supply, such as in platinum group metals and in chrome, ferrochrome and the like. And countries would hate to terminate their access to South African supplies of such goods. So again, it's not clear-cut that we would have significant sanctions, but they could opt on to sanction us in some of the softer areas, such as agricultural products, where they can switch to other sources of supply quite easily.
Dr. Azar Jammine, always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time.